Okay guys, and in this final video I'm gonna go over the engine and drivetrain. I'm gonna start with the clutch. I'm currently running the Exedy twin disc heavy duty. There's many people who are still on the OEM clutch. Mileage may vary on that, literally. Seen some people get a lot of miles on it, some people not so much. Really depends on how you drive it, which is expected. The fluid I'm running in the 5-speed is just the RDL cocktail. Okay, here is the underneath of the car. You can see the purple. That's how you know that's the trademark color of the Exedy clutches. Otherwise, it's a stock transmission, transfer case. I do a partial launch during autocrosses, depending on how the course is laid out. Usually, they set it up so that you can't do a full red line 2-step launch. Many of the courses I've encountered have a big turn right after the start gate, and I believe this is done on purpose. So in this car, I rev it up to maybe 4,500, somewhere in the middle, just enough to get the turbo going. I blipped the gas a few times, and then I let the clutch out using the dog shit method. It's kind of hard to explain that. Imagine if you stepped on a pile and you slowly let your left foot out. This avoids the drivetrain shock of a full 2-step launch. But eventually, you're gonna get to the point where after all those launches, things are just gonna start to wear down. In my case, in this car, the first signs of that was gear lockout. When you're just driving around normally, you'll have a hard time getting into gear while the car is actually moving. I think for me, it started with third gear. Then I think reverse is a pretty common one on the 5-speed. It will just lock out. Then I get to fifth. Your tuner can adjust the clutch in or out to compensate for that. But eventually you'll get to the point of no return where you'll just get clutch drag and gear lockout no matter what you do. And at that point, it's time to rebuild or replace the clutch. I've rebuilt it once, but I've gotten maybe over 20 full red line launches out of it. Back then I was doing the full red line launch, not knowing any better. So it lasted quite a while. In terms of the Exedy twin, it's rated for 550 wheel horsepower or so. And that's going to lead me to the final segment of this series, engine. Even though the series wasn't in any specific order, I specifically saved engine for last, because for a beginner autocrosser, you could do perfectly fine with the stock engine and stock turbo. If you have a used Evo with a lot of horsepower, you might find yourself in a situation where you might actually have to detune the car. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but given the amount of used cars I've seen with aftermarket engines, turbos, sometimes it's just a little too much power to put down. Even if you're doing a road course, that excess power is going to be really hard for a novice driver to handle. In my case, I'm still running the stock Evo 9 turbo. And you could go on this setup for quite a long time. For me, I have found no reason to upgrade. I do have S2 cams in there, but honestly, it wouldn't make a difference for my purposes. For aftermarket turbo, there's been a lot of debate, but usually the trade-off in higher spool time is not worth it for autocross. I believe after the HTA or the normal FP green, you're really sacrificing some spool. If I had to choose, I would prefer the stroker engines, the 2.3 or the 2.4 over the 2.0. Anything that helps the bottom end torque, that's gonna be more of an advantage, in my opinion. This engine's also tuned for E85. My current numbers are around 400 wheel horsepower on 93 and around 440 on E85. I will make a note that when I was on E85, I was still running the stock suspension, and I was having a pretty rough time putting down all that power. Even with coilovers now, I'm still just running 93. I have yet to outdrive my current setup. So until that happens, there's no reason for me to upgrade anything else. So I hope everyone found this series somewhat helpful in getting started. If you paid attention, you probably noticed that you could literally just take this car out, bone stock as it is, and just start get driving. And that's my recommendation. As you get better, then you can start looking into mods. You mod the driver first and then mod the car second.